Good day. Now we're looking at the parabola. So we have a question here. Put the following general equation of the parabola into standard form and include a graph with a focus and a vertex. Well, the first thing we have to look at is our conic equations right here. If you weren't told it was a parabola, you should just be able to see it's a parabola by recognizing only one of the terms is squared. So the x squared is squared and the y is not. That's how you can really tell right away that this is a parabola. So the first step is let's change this general equation into a standard equation. We're going to group the x's because the x is squared. We're going to have to complete the square with the x. Bring all the other terms across the equal sign. Be careful to change the sign when you cross the equal sign. Now here we have a -1 in front of the x squared. That must come out before we complete the square. It's the number one mistake most students make. So be careful right here. So take it a -1 and we're left with x squared minus 6x. Careful again to make sure you take out the negative of the 6x as well. Now we're going to complete the square. So we're going to say x squared minus 6x, half of -6 is -3, squared is +9. But we've changed our equation now. We didn't add a 9, we added -1 times 9. So we've added -9 to this side, so we have to add -9 to the opposite side. Now we know this is a perfect square, so we can say bring the x down. Half of -6 is -3 equals 4y. Divide this by 4 and we have -1/4 x minus 3 all squared equals, I'm going to put here y minus 0 because that's now in standard form. With a parabola, we don't have a center, we actually have a vertex. The vertex is hk as such. The h always goes with the x, so we have +3 and the k is 0 in this case. I just wanted to illustrate this y minus 0. You don't have to include it if you don't want to, but I just want to show you where it comes from. Now, we have our vertex, so the next thing we have to do is try to find our focus. How we find our focus is by the method 1/4p equals to our a term. Our a term is this number in front of the squared right here. It's -1/4. So what we're going to do is cross multiply and divide, and we get -1 for p. So to find the focus, because this is solved for y, our y coordinate is the one that's going to be changing. So we're going to leave the 3 alone, and we're going to say 0 plus the p. Now our p is -1, so that means our focus becomes 0 plus -1, which really just becomes 3, -1. So here's our focus. Here's our vertex. Now, another thing we can sometimes find is called a directrix. A directrix is a line that's equal distance from the vertex as the vertex is from the focus. So the directrix is going to be on the same coordinate. We're going to say 0, but we're going to say minus p. So in our case, we have 0 minus a -1. So we have a line, y equals 1. So now we have a vertex, we have a focus, and we have a directrix. Now we're going to try to make a little small sketch of what we have in front of us. So now we're going to have, as such, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to go up 1, and we're going to go down 1, 2, and 3. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our vertex, which was 3 and 0, right here. Our directrix, I'm going to use the little dotted lines that illustrate a little bit better, is right here. We're going to call that y equals 1. And we had a focus. Our focus with the parabola is always inside the bowl. So the focus was 3 and -1. So my focus is right here. So this tells me that my parabola has to go from my vertex in this kind of fashion. So right now we only have 2 points. My vertex is here, my directrix is right here, and my focus right there. So how are we going to figure out these points? Well, we know this line is going to cross the y-axis. So what we can do is try to find that point by trying to find the y-intercept. So if I set x equal to 0, and you go back into our original equation, y equals -1/4 0 minus 3 all squared, we get -9/4. So that's roughly -2.25. So here's -1, -2. So right here some point, that's where that's going to cross the axis. Now, with a parabola, you be very careful to know that the vertex is the symmetrical point right in the middle. So there's another point somewhere over here on the exact same level as this point here. So this point for the vertex was 3, 0. I went 1, 2, 3 to the left for my x. This point here is actually 0 and -9/4. So if I go 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, that's 6. And down the same amount, if I go right here, this point is 6, -9/4. So now we have our parabola will go like this and like that. And here we have our graph.